In 1970, Ray Davies said that if Lola had not been a hit, the band would have drifted apart and probably would have disbanded altogether. But come on, the moment you hear that intro, you know it's a banger. Lola was a song which generated a lot of controversy on its release, but it also saved the band from fading away altogether. By the end of the 60s, the Kinks weren't in a good place. The band hadn't made much of an impact since 1967's Waterloo Sunset, and that didn't even chart in America. Their last successful single in the US was Sunny Afternoon in 1966. 1968, the Kinks' Are the Village Green Preservation Society had been a total flop, and the next year's Arthur, or the Decline and Fall of the British Empire, also suffered from poor sales, although that album was celebrated by critics. And of course, none of this was helped by the fact that the Kinks were banned from performing in the USA for a while. They were in desperate need of a hit, something that would bring them out of their slump and into a new 70s era for the band. And so Ray set his sights for exactly that. He wanted to write a hit, and Ray knew he had stumbled upon one with some help from his daughter. I wrote Lola to be a great record, not a great song, something that people could recognise in the first 5 seconds. Even the chorus, my 2-year-old daughter sang it back to me. I thought this must catch on, and it definitely did. Come on, it's impossible not to sing along to that chorus, which is amazing when you think it's only really made up of one word. With that hook and chorus worked out, it came time to think about the lyrics, which is where Ray really pushed the boundaries. See, the lyrics are a narrative of sorts about a man who's on a night out in Soho, London, and is captivated by a gorgeous woman who, of course, isn't what she seems. These lyrics, which defied gender norms, were controversial at the time, and the song was banned on some radio stations, especially in Australia. Some stations refused to play it outright, and some would fade out the song before these lyrics had a chance to hit the airwaves. The song was banned on the BBC in the UK too, but not because of those lyrics. The BBC had a problem with this lyric in particular.
Well, you drink champagne and it tastes like Coca-Cola. C-O-L-A-Cola.
The BBC had a strict no brand name policy at that time and refused to play the song. So Ray had to fly back to London in the middle of a US tour and re-record that line to this.
And it tastes just like cherry cola. C-O-L-A-Cola.
Some reports say that after returning to the States to carry on with the tour, he realised he didn't like the take he had done, so flew back again to re-record it for a second time. Ray had written this song to be a hit, and he clearly wasn't going to let anything get in the way of that, even with such a risque subject matter. And there are a few stories as to where the idea behind this song came from. For a long time, it was thought that the idea came from a date Ray had gone on with the Warhol superstar Candy Darling. Ray denies this, though, and says he always knew that Candy was transgender. According to drummer Mick Avery, the song was inspired by drag queen acts and transsexual pubs he and Ray would often go to on nights out. But according to Ray himself, the narrative of this song was based on a real night out in Paris and an experience had by manager Robert Wace. One of our crew at the time met this beautiful blonde and he took her back to the hotel. In the morning, he saw the stubble growing on her chin, so he got a surprise. However, this theme of gender non-conformity wasn't exactly new for Ray or his brother. They were exposed to the ideas of it as early as their childhoods. We used to dress up and have parties at home. Men dressed as women. My dad, who is the most macho man you could imagine, used to put on a wig occasionally and dance around and make a fool of himself, which I encouraged. As well as this, Lola's inspiration came from the social circles that Dave and Ray found themselves in as young men. Obviously, there were a lot of people we knew who were transgender at the time, and we knew a lot of gay people. But you have to remember, when the Kinks first started, homosexuality was illegal in England. So there were a lot of people that were having problems with their demonstration of their sexuality, or how they wanted to appear. And we were at the beginning of all that. Dave, of course, has been very open with his sexuality over the years, talking of his experimentation and relationships with men. And so for Ray, who wrote the lyrics, you can see where that deep empathy and respect for someone like Lola comes from. Lola was incredibly progressive in that way. While the term LGBT and even transgender didn't really exist back in 1970, in more recent years the song has been recognised as one of, if not the first big hit with an LGBT theme. And it was important to Ray to reflect that sort of character accurately. When I write songs, I put myself in the part. In Sunny Afternoon, I wanted to know who this broken down aristocrat was, and I became him. In Lola's journey, I did a bit of research with drag queens. I admire anyone who can get up and be what they want to be. I love that last sentence there. I admire anyone who can get up and be what they want to be. While he said that in 2020, you can hear that same attitude and respect back in 1970.
Girls will be boys and boys will be girls. It's a mixed up, muddled up, shook up world. It's a Lola.
Ray is saying there that Lola seems to be the only person who really has a grasp on her life, and that's something to be respected. Although at the time, the lyrics and the content of the song likely went over a lot of people's heads. People only hear a third of the lyrics when they're playing a song before they make up their mind they like it. They'll just listen to the catchy parts. It wasn't the first time the Kinks explored themes of sexuality either. See My Friends from 1965 was, according to Ray, bordering on themes of homosexuality. And Ray went on to explore similar themes later in the 70s as well. It wasn't just a fluke. Out of the Wardrobe was about a cross-dressing straight man. And On the Outside talks about the need to accept your identity, which Ray later revealed is transgender. Back to Lola though, with lyrics like those, Ray needed the right sort of sound to complement them. It wasn't a power chord song like You Really Got Me. It was a power chord beginning. It needed a special acoustic guitar sound. Sonorous, growling, with an attack to it. There's a macho swing to it, a stride, for all its questionable content. Ray even kept the subject matter away from the band, so they wouldn't be influenced and change how they played it. It was important to have that macho swing, as he called it, to juxtapose the narrative in the lyrics. The guitar sound in the song was achieved by mixing a Martin guitar, inspired by one of Ray's folk blues heroes, Big Bill Broonzy, and a National Dobro guitar, inspired by his dad, who often told him to use a banjo if he wanted a hit song. The National sounded like a banjo, according to Ray Davies anyway. And believe it or not, that famous intro was a late addition to the song. The song didn't have a beginning. It just started with a guitar trickling in. It's got to be a hit in the first 3 seconds, and we still didn't have that. It's also important to say that Dave Davies has said over the years that his musical contribution to Lola went sorely uncredited. By the way, I should mention the surname of Ray and Dave. Davies, or Davis. I've done a few videos on the Kinks, and every time I do, there are people in the comments saying, "It's not pronounced like that, it's pronounced like this." Well, amazingly, just to clear this up, Dave and Ray actually pronounce it in opposite ways. How strange is that? Here's Ray pronouncing his surname.
My brother, Dave Davis, was 15 when we signed our first recording agreement.
And now here's Dave pronouncing his surname.
Hiya, I'm Dave Davies of the Kinks.
Bizarre, isn't it? So don't attack me in the comments. Thanks very much. Anyway, back on track. The song was recorded in April and May of 1970 as part of the album known as Lola vs. Powerman. Lola wasn't an easy song to get right, and according to bassist John Dalton, it took a while to record. They recorded 4 or 5 versions before finally landing on the one we know today. And it became an instant hit, number 2 in the UK charts, and they had finally broken the top 10 in America again. And having proved their commercial viability, they were actually able to renegotiate a new, more fruitful contract with their label, RCA. Just as they had revolutionised pop in the 60s with You Really Got Me, they had a huge impact on the landscape again with Lola. Like I said, this was one of the first mainstream songs to really explore those themes of gender fluidity and sexuality, and it sets the tone for the future of rock. Many point to this song as a precursor of sorts to glam rock. Lola arrived 2 years before the genre exploded with the likes of David Bowie and T-Rex, 2 acts known for blurring the line between gender norms. Lola flirted with the same themes that would go on to define glam rock, androgyny and sexual ambiguity. Before he passed away, Lou Reed told me that Lola was a big influence on him. It was reassuring to him when he did Walk on the Wild Side. That song famously touches heavily on transgender themes. 6 years later, Blue Oyster Cult would release one of the biggest songs of the 70s, Don't Fear the Reaper. And it turns out a lot of people completely misunderstood what that song was about as well. Are you one of them? Well, click over there for that story next.